In the age of automation and artificial intelligence, the integration of these technologies in the audiovisual landscape raises critical questions about the delicate balance between enhancing user experiences and potential impacts on human interaction. And to introduce today's panel, please welcome your moderator, the CEO of Brisbane-based technology group and retailer Video Pro, Mr. Cameron Douglas.
Thank you. What a build-up, Tim. Thank you for your partaking in that. All right, our topic for today is automation in AV, enhancing user experience or diminishing human interaction. So we've got a few goals today that we want to try and achieve. We're going to do our best not to zoom out of this topic too far into dreamland. I'm sure you've all sat through enough AI and automation lectures where you walk away sort of mind spinning. And we don't want to end up in some kind of dystopian future. So our goals today are we want you to have some takeaways. They are not for us to end on Skynet. So I'm going to introduce our panel. First up, on my left here, Cecilia So, the country manager for AOpen, which is an Acer Group company. Someone I've known for a while, Cecilia. Jonathan McFarlane, Hao Xu, lecturer at UNSW, and a PhD with a focus on spatio-temporal data mining related research, something I read regularly about. Jonathan McFarlane, co-founder and director of Place OS, someone we've also worked with quite a bit. And Lawrence Kahn, the Google Chrome lead for Australia and New Zealand. As Tim said, my name's Cameron. I run an AV business called Video Pro. All right. To my panelists, please jump in if you have anything you'd like to contribute that I don't specifically ask. So, John, I'm going to go to you to get us started. What is automation in AV? What are we out there automating at the moment?
That seems like a lowball question, but it's so general. I could go in so many different directions. And I'll try not to talk about Skynet. And by the way, I read Hao's research. It's really interesting. So automation is all about taking a shortcut to the desired action and to the desired goal of the room or the space. I think in a space like this, and most spaces I can think of, the fundamental goal is to be comfortable. So if you want to automate comfort, we have context and actions. And I think that concept is transferable in any automation you're trying to achieve. So the context is the data that you program into the system. So humidity, temperature, CO2 parts per million, the lighting levels, everything you want to know what is the state now, and then I can use that to have logic to trigger the desired action, which could be comfort, so turn up the air conditioning based on how many people are here as well. So it's all about getting the right context and triggering the right action. And sometimes the user is giving us input, so they're giving us that context. That could be a graphical user interface. It could be AI. And sometimes the person is the context. So by being in a space, they're triggering desired actions. So we can break down a lot of that in examples that we do at Place OS and leverage the rest of the technology on this stage.
Do you think cameras have become one of the key pieces that we're all automating now in the AV industry?
Yeah, and you're making it hard not to jump into the AI straight away, but computer vision and cameras. Every camera in a conference room today likely has a people counting API at the very least. So we know how many people are in the space. Run computer vision on that, we know what people are doing in the space. So we can have more context than just counting people, which is important, but we should be doing, at least thinking about more than that. Like what's happening in the space? Is there a coffee cup that needs cleaning? Is there a backpack that's been left abandoned? All that sort of stuff can happen on the same cameras and the same feeds, because it's all just standard video streams, and you can run those models on top very easily.
So, Hao, I'd like to jump to you. Could you give us a bit of a rundown on some of the stuff you're working on at the moment?
Yes. So in my research, we're currently working on something like ChatGPT, but not for like a conversation, not for text. We do for spatial temporal data. So what is spatial temporal data? As long as we have the time and the location, it can be considered as spatial temporal. For example, at 10 a.m., we're here at ICC, so we are spatial temporal data points. So in our group, we try to combine all these kind of data points, like from our mobility, from transportation, from traffic countings, and there's some sensors on the highway network. And then we try to build a foundation model that can cover all these aspects, because eventually it's about human. It's about our movement in the city. So we think there's some internal connections between all the parts, and then we want to leverage the foundation model, ChatGPT, this kind of new way to communicate with end users to build this kind of QA system or chatbot about your mobility. That's kind of our goal for now.
Yeah, wow. Is there a simple way for us to define, particularly through your lens, the differences between automation and artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think for me the key difference between automation and AI is about the learning ability of the data, of big data, and then the reasoning ability on the new unseen data. For me, typically, I think the automation is more like predefined instructions or rules, but AI can go beyond that. We all tried ChatGPT before or Gemini, so it's like we can ask something we didn't even know before, even some creative work. I think that's the main difference: the learning from the data and the reasoning on new data. I would say. Yeah.
So, Cecilia, we're going to come back down into a safe space for the AV industry, which is the meeting room. We love the meeting room. Who are the biggest players that are bringing automation into the AV systems? We've got Microsoft, Google, and Zoom trying to take more of the video conferencing experience. What are the AV companies doing to automate in the meeting room?
I think that's a very good question. And coming from John, who highlighted on the UX as well as how as well, both of them mentioned about the users. And I'm going to address this from a user point of view. And there are already AV systems out there that already have the automation. However, it is lacking the true end-to-end piece itself. Without focus on the user experience. I think all the AV system have been trying to deliver the EX without thinking about what is actually true UX. How could we actually deliver the true UX through the right automation piece itself? Okay. So I think you asked about the motivation side of it. It's very important for organizations to rethink how we deploy a solution. It could be from IT infrastructure, especially now with the AI as well and the AV as well. Breaking down the motivation concept itself, there's a motive to achieve the end goal result itself. So I'd like to challenge businesses to think about what is the motivation behind it? What's the end goal that you truly want to achieve in today's society for a betterment of the EX itself to the UX. Okay, so translating this concept into the automation transformation piece itself, AV innovators truly need to understand the changing user behavior. Has that been taken into consideration? And that's my challenge to companies that I discuss to. Businesses that come to me, to our organization to talk about, can you tell me more about the solution? What can we do more with the budget shrinking? How could we actually deliver a true piece of automation? Okay, I think these all need to be taken into consideration. And I talk about the user changing behavior, yeah, and consider the efficiency, productivity side of it, as well as the delivering the UX, that the employee feel confident to embrace the solution. Okay, a very good example. I'm a guest lecturer and speaker to a few unis, and often from me being a user, walking into a space, thinking that, okay, my guest speaking start at 1:00, I can easily click on the AV system. However, there's always a lack of automation there. The room is so hot and, you can see the students struggling. And the worst thing for me as a lecturer, I'm trying to control the system. Can you imagine? I've got this big screen in front of me. The lectern is in front of me and I have to keep looking back. And I'm always conscious of, are the audience able to see what's behind me? So are we truly automating? Are we truly looking at the UX? That's the question for businesses. AV innovators to truly think about.
And the lecture theatre is such a great example because there's nothing worse than the AV not working in front of 100 students.
Oh, gosh. Yes.
And it does, we've got a saying, if the user experience doesn't work straight away, then the entire system's broken. Because that's usually the thing that fails is the way someone interfaces.
Yeah, I think company need to also clearly understand, we talk about workplace culture, yeah? We think that by giving EX, it would deliver productivity and workplace culture. There's more to it. We need to challenge the norm.
Cecilia, who are the stakeholders involved in this? Because when we're doing AV systems now, particularly through the lens of employee experience, you go, all right, you've got your HR people, you've got your technology people, you've got your real estate people. Is this group getting along, do you think? Are they friends yet?
That's a very good question. And I think that was our conversation yesterday as well. AV is another piece of technology. Automation is a piece of technology to the whole ecosystem. Okay. What I'm seeing currently in organizations, the AV is operating silo to the IT department. And now with the AI coming into place, who is going to be in the middle, trying to connect the piece? Similarly with AV as well, there need to be collaboration, internal stakeholders. And you're 100% right in saying that the people culture needs to be sitting down to discuss with the AV adopters and the one that is deploying the solution. What do we truly want to achieve with this budget and to deliver the true UX? I think I'd like everyone to remember, the digital natives segments are increasing. Okay, like the Gen Z, the Gen Y. And what does it mean for them? Does it mean that they will automatically walk into a system, a technology to just use it? But they still need to have the learning user experience. Are we delivering that as an innovator?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I make a couple of quick comments on the stakeholders and the university example? The other missed opportunity often is the academics being part of a university solution. It could be a potential smart city university campus, but facilities and audiovisual often don't even talk to each other, let alone, House Lab at UNSW that do smart city research. So I think that's something universities are trying to get better at. And in some ways, technology companies can come in and bridge those, like literally bring people into the room for the first time at the same university, and they can have the conversation as the technology being the catalyst of that conversation.
Lawrence, we see as the AV industry gets bigger that the biggest companies in the world start to get more involved with it. And certainly Google is one of the biggest companies in the world. How are Google innovating in the automation of the AV industry?
Thanks for a question, mate. I was getting a bit lonely down here, I must say. So I want to unpack this a little bit because I know we went down the meeting room path, and obviously Google has a vast array of enterprise solutions, right, in meeting rooms and elsewhere. But the key concept there underneath it all is the investment in open ecosystems. So if anyone's heard the terms, obviously Android before, Chrome, as well as like Kubernetes, which now power the majority of large-scale web applications around the world. All of those are open sourced. All of them are then leveraged in a myriad of different ways, and all of them are open ecosystems with APIs at the core. So with that, it's around flexibility around all of this, because as we'll get to, I think, a little bit later, is around how do you stitch together all of the different solutions and partners to ultimately deliver the solution, which is why like this panel is very diverse, because we all need to come together in order to deliver that automation, because nothing's going to just work straight out of the box. So it's about, and I think just while I'm on that point, it's why these sort of events are really important to network around and to foster those relationships and to see what's possible in the marketplace. So then you can take the pieces away and deliver for your business or for your customers.
We kind of you can look through the lens of traditional AV and new AV. And I don't mean to say that one is more rudimentary than the other. I mean to say that some players have been in AV for a long time and some players are more new to AV. How do you find working with AV integrators when it comes to deploying AV solutions?
We work a lot with sort of next gen providers, right? Who have customers that are wanting more and wanting to get on the cusp and the bleeding edge, you could say. And I think that comes back to the relationship point as well, where there's going to need to be integrations built. Nothing like not everything's going to work straight away, but it's around finding the purpose of why we're automating, why we're trying to leverage AI, why it's going to be measurable, and what sort of outcome and impact it's going to have. And with that, working with those next generation sort of AV integrators, it's around having a really close relationship to be able to trust each other, to talk around the design and the architecture, and then pull the pieces together to ultimately deliver the solution.
It's a great point. I mean, we are a traditional integrator. You know, Crestron, AMX, QSys. You know, all the beats there. But we've also done work with John's company. We've done work on Chrome. We've done work with Cecilia's company. We've done Smart Workplace, and I found that through the AV lens, it's far more instructional assembly. So if you do this, and this is how it will work, and this is how it's set up. And as soon as we step into the world of dealing with Chrome and AOpen and Place and things like that, it becomes very much like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do, and how do you want to do this workflow? And that, to me, is how I kind of define the two sides of what is, I guess, traditional or more prescriptive AV versus what is now new, very wide open AV. So this leads me to the next question. In technology, you can change. We used to say we should do that, but can we? And now we say we can do that, but should we? Now, I don't know how many of you have experienced the automation of that door, but that's got to be, that's a tough door. It's always opening and closing on you at the wrong time. Someone sat down in a room, though, and they said, we should automate this door. And someone else didn't stand up, did they? And say, well, you know, it's a pain in the ass. And I guess that question. This is a bit of a tough question, Cecilia. But are you finding companies following a process around automation that does ask that question of like, should we do this? Are we doing it for the sake of doing it, or is it going to add value?
That's a very good question, Cameron, and a very good example on the door as well. It comes back to, I think I'd like everyone to think about from looking at a company's holistic approach. Okay, whatever design we're doing, implementation solution, we need to look at a whole company holistic approach. And understanding that automation is actually a piece of technology, right? As a business continuous improvement strategy, okay, we need to look at what's the strategy behind it. And is it for the employees, for business optimization, or is it a combination of several factors inbuilt in it? Okay, so I'd like to bring in, with PlaceOS technology, if you have a deep down approach into why the technology, how they have been automating, you clearly see that, hey, it's not just about people, but it's about the business and the investment piece itself. Yeah. So I like everyone to think. I think we should be thinking it from holistic approach, and also think about the design process itself. I think in all projects, there's always a design phase, the implementation phase, the execution. So when it comes to the design phase, again, we need to ask, what's the motivation behind it, the business objective, the motives, which is, the dollar spent on it, the end result, what do I hope to achieve? It comes back to the motivational piece, yeah? And other aspect we need to truly look at is the elements of values. During the design process, have we actually looked into the elements of value, from the functional to the social to the emotional, as well as to the self-transcendence? So what put it in very simple term in technologies, functional, the user aspect itself, is it going to give the emotional, is other users feeling comfortable using it? Okay, do they really want to use it? And the social impact of it. If they feel emotionally connected to the technology, they will feel proud to share it with the EX, the rest of the employees, to adopt the solution. And from there, they feel like, in the culture, in the workplace culture, they feel more connected because they are comfortable. Okay, that's what I'm seeing. Yeah, that's so the design phase is truly important. And that the design can only be successful, as you highlighted earlier, the internal partnership. There needs to be a collaboration between different key stakeholders, and build an ecosystem. What do they actually truly want to deliver? Yeah.
All right, let's change course a bit. When people are planning on automating more of their workflows, what ethical or governance concerns should we be thinking about?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think top one in my head would be the data and then the privacy concerns. For automation or AI, a lot of us build upon the power of data. The big data is the new oil, kind of. But when we use data, there's some concerns about the data misuse, and which can lead to severe consequences. For example, in the audio-video context, I think we don't want our voices or faces to be recorded or used by some black box models in an ethical way. We want to know, okay, where it's stored, where it's used, and how our face is being collected, or we don't want face save in the raw data format somewhere. I think that's top one, and then. Another aspect I would say because relate to the impact of employment. We all know automation can kind of change do some job displacement at some level. But I think the initial goal of automation is help us to reduce the workload at some point. For example, the invention of calculators, it can free us from some basic calculations so that we have time to focus on solving more fancier, equations. I think that would be same for AI automation. It gives us more opportunity to work on more valuable jobs or, tasks. We don't want to, everybody lose jobs, concerned about this. So that will backfire us to reduce the opportunity to leverage automation for some bigger good. So I think at this point, we can introduce some like a retraining or upscaling program while we introduce the automation into the system. I think the last point I would say is about the human oversight or regulation. We all know that, we have new generative AI tools, apps almost every week. But in this fast pace, I think our legal or oversighting framework a little behind. We may need to introduce some human in the loop to make sure all these new apps, new tools are being used in a, ethical way, and then people can really trust that. One example is, if you saw an article and then nobody tells that it's generated by ChatGPT, you probably will trust that or, believe what he says. But if it is told you, you have been told that this is generated by ChatGPT, although it's very good paper, you may not believe that. I think if we have the better structure, like human in the loop or some oversighting system, people may even trust, okay, that's generated by ChatGPT and that is being verified and then is trustworthy. I think that's top 3 points in my mind.
Yeah, good one. Lawrence, does more automation lead to additional security or privacy concerns? An easy example is if a video call automatically starts and someone's sitting in a room talking smack about the person they're about to talk to and they didn't realize that the camera was on, and that, that creates a problem. Are you seeing automation lead to more security or privacy concerns?
It sounds like you're speaking from experience.
Yeah, it's definitely happened to me. I'm not ashamed.
A loaded question, I think.
It reminds me a lot of the Zoom bombing, right? At the start of COVID, where people didn't have pins on their Zoom calls. I want to get to that. I just wanted to actually just pivot a little bit and go. I like going back to simplicity and going back to basics and just set it up with practical things to get started on. I know like automation is a bit of a lever, right? And there's a point in the lever where you need to start automating with AI. But the point before that, before you get there, before you pull it back that far, is like application logic. And it's by application logic, I mean if statements, pretty much. If a product is picked up, now I'm going to look retail example, by the way, not talking about meeting rooms. Or if a door is open to a meeting room, what happens? If the sensor goes off, what happens? If you're in a Foot Locker, as an example, and someone picks up a shoe, could you change the AV environment, change the environment around them powered by AV to do it? And then I don't think there's any security issues there. You just have a scenario like the door, right, where you want to ensure it's not diminishing human interaction, as the second half of this title of this panel, but it's got to be improving that experience. And that's why the first time that I spoke, I mentioned around making sure everything's measurable, making sure it's objective, right? And being able to capture that data. Like with the door as an example, again, how many times did it open? How many people walk through it? That'd be a pretty good metric to see if it's a successful automation or not. With getting started, if you are pulling the lever back, going into the AI realm, it's really important to obviously have the safeguards as we've discussed. I'd like to also give you a practical example here of hitting and giving it a Google and Googling Google's AI principles, a double one verb in there, and then the noun. And there's a bunch of AI principles there that have been public for many years that you can read and also then almost copy and paste right into your business practices to ensure you're doing so and automating in a safe manner that is trusted. Also, going back to the other piece as well around partnerships, you're going to need to plug in with a whole bunch of different partners and software integrations, and it's using brands and businesses that you do trust and that can be that are explainable and will open the bonnet for you to take a look so that you can stand behind the solution that you're building.
Can I ask what the primary coding languages people are using when they're engaging in Place or Chrome or writing more automation? Because a lot of AV companies have kind of come from it's proprietary, but now it's becoming more standardized. But it's obviously very open once it hits your world.
I think the most real world example is going to be John. Do you want to?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we have a similar philosophy to Google on being, creating standards and being open. So no matter what sort of framework you have, we can interface with it. So the API is more important than what you're building your interface in, for example. So, internally we use AngularJS as a framework. That's just a web standard framework. The back end is all Crystal, which is an object-based framework. But it doesn't really matter because it's all it's all standard computer science, standard architecture, and we can take people straight out of university and they can come program for us. I think that's a shift with audiovisual where it's one programming language for 20 years, and you're learning it 20 years after it was invented, and it reaches its limitation. So we choose to change our framework when it reaches a limitation, and we can do so and still support legacy and particularly on the front end. There's a decoupling of front end and back end. So the front end can be anything. The front end doesn't have to be there. You don't have to hard code an app that does all the automation, which is a really important point. There's a lot of apps that you need the app to do the thing, where we're trying to make technology invisible basically, and that allows us to automate more than whatever that app was hard coded to automate.
Is that terminology called headless architecture? I'm just trying to keep up with these guys.
We don't
Never heard of that? No. Well, maybe it's a new thing. Okay. All right, staying with you, John. Let's go back to the workplace. All right, you zoom out from the meeting room. Now we're talking about the entire workplace, the entire campus. How are we approaching automation at that bigger level?
Yeah, and I think this is a huge opportunity for the people in this room because, I've had real world examples where we bring in other departments because we're breaking out of the meeting room or the lecture theatre at a university, and we start touching on facility management and campus experiences, and each stakeholder brings budget. So we go from a meeting room focused project that might have a $20,000 budget to a campus project that has a $5 million budget. And this creates a lot of services, a lot of need for system integrators to come in and fill the needs of those services. So I think the short answer is that it's all about workflow from one experience to the other. Where does the experience start in your organization? For a workplace that you might be a visitor invited to the building. Well, then we need that visitor experience to be seamless all the way through to the meeting or wherever that visitor is ending up. So that means we have to tie into access control. So from the base building access control, could be the boom gate for the car park, the security gates in the lobby, the elevators to get to your floor, because reception's never on ground floor, that's security. Reception's usually like level 15 or something like that. So how do you get to level 15 without it taking 20 minutes, which is a challenge, right? So the more technology we connect, the more workflow automation we have. And you just start thinking about every stakeholder and what are their friction points the whole way through. Is it the employee that's coming into cycling in and needs automation when it comes to using the shower facilities and trip facilities? Is it so highly used it needs a booking system behind it? Can we remove the booking system so things can be truly flexible? One of the best examples actually is the Google office in New York, a recent Google office in the west side near the Hudson River, where they went truly flexible in the sense that you can rearrange your furniture. There is no scheduling system for the meeting rooms because that meeting room might turn into an office, or that 3-person meeting room can combine with the one next door to be a boardroom. And like this, we have that in a static way, and we have for a long time, like joining meeting rooms that have 2 modes. But how do we make it so it can just react to what you're doing? You don't have to book it in a certain way. I'm really sort of like frustrated by booking systems getting in the way of experiences, where I think things need to be a lot more real time, and the technology needs to adapt and be more real time. And to talk about AI, that's the promise of AI. It's moving. It's this declarative approach. It's not hard coding things. It's exposing all your APIs to a large language model, and it can decide what to trigger. So like that possibility means like it can react to what you're doing. A tangible example, PlaceOS has a module for a Samsung TV. In that module, we have about 20 functions. But if you're building a touch panel interface, you might be using one function, the power on off. The other functions are not used unless you program them to be used. But if we expose that Samsung TV module to a large language model, we can say things like, the TV image isn't very good. And it can work out, well, the time of the day, the blinds are open. I can see I've got a function to increase the brightness. I'm going to go ahead, increase the brightness, close the blinds. And that didn't have to be hard coded. It can be a real-time action, essentially the system programming itself based on the functions you expose to the large language model. And I think that's where the user experience is completely frictionless. And to get to that point, it sounds complicated, but it's achieving a simple outcome. And sometimes a simple outcome takes complicated technology. And that's the opportunity, because that's services, that's billable services from service providers.
All right, I want to land this plane through through that second part around diminishing human interaction. So something that I've noticed is that whenever a new technology comes out, the company that advertises it usually says, this will automate something and allow you to focus on higher value tasks, and that you will be able to focus on higher value tasks to be more productive. And I thought to myself, well, what is a higher value task? Because these very smart people working on automations and AI are usually automating other very smart things around automation and AI. And so the idea that a higher value task is to work on a higher value algorithm is actually perhaps not the right way to look at it. And maybe the way we look at a higher value task now is through the EQ lens and through the emotive lens. And all of a sudden you're automating tasks so as that you can then focus on leadership, empathy, caring, customer service. And so in turn, your AI might take a mathematician's job, but perhaps they wouldn't take a nurse's job. And all of a sudden the caring roles become far more important. As we keep pushing more automation in, does it take away human connection that in the course of action actually builds relationship capital and makes our lives a better place? Because if we make everything frictionless, well, would we just sit at home and watch Netflix? That's not what any of us want. Cecilia, do you think we lose some human interaction when we do too much automation?
I think we need to have a balanced approach to the whole idea of automation. I think AI is not going to replace jobs. It's going to create the efficiency and optimize our employees. Why am I saying that? Because currently with our organization, we have a very small workforce, and with AI in our productivity tool, it then enables my team to be a polymath. As I've said to my team, the whole workplace is changing. People's culture are changing. It is an opportunity for them to relearn new things, new areas of work, to become a polymath. Okay, so it will not diminish the human interaction. It will actually connect the workplace in a more tighter knit situation.
Anyone can answer this one as well. Do you think that when you start to remove smaller interactions between people, that you start to remove the ability to have conflict? Because I agree with you, but I feel that you need to have very strong leadership that's willing to enter into conflict. And when they start to become very sterile and removed because everything's kind of just happening around them, they don't have a reason to. That's when that future relies on strong leadership. And you could argue we're getting a bit weaker on leadership because people are a bit more disconnected nowadays.
That's a very good point, Cameron. You mentioned about leadership. Yeah, I just want to highlight people's culture can't happen if there's no strong leadership. There are a lot of corporate social responsibility statements that state about, well, the company's people culture, the sustainability. And another question to ask, are we truly practicing it? So the leadership come into place with clear expectation for the workplace, and encouraging them to learn new skills. Okay, because automation is going to improve our efficiency, optimize the business, which then enable the workforce to look at what else can we increase other areas of business value. Yeah.
Did anyone else want to chime in on the human connection piece of automation?
I think if you remove the easiest way to remove technology friction is to remove the technology, and the more technology we remove, the more the more visible technology we remove, the more has to happen in the background. And if we remove technology getting in the way, it enhances the human experience. One of our templated interfaces is called the concierge interface, right? And it shows you the visualization of all the automation going on, basically, to allow the concierge person, a human person, a real person, not an AI, to do a better job. So they don't have to worry as much about technology, but they have that confidence that they can interject when the automation isn't doing what they need it to do. So I think it's more about, everything is about enhancing the human experience by leveraging AI and technology, not replacing humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. For all of our audience who are in the AV industry at the moment, and for John, Lawrence, or Cecilia, how do AV companies who currently work with traditional AV suppliers make the change to be more tech forward on automation and things like that?
Come down to booth F27, where we all are. That's the easiest way, right?
That's a good one.
Yeah, the first response is you need to build networks. You need to know who to go to, and you have and when to go to them. And that's the best place to start. So come down, open up a conversation, and everyone will be happy to help and to connect.
Yeah. Okay. I think from my end, I'd like to highlight, the collaboration piece is so important in building the right ecosystem. A very good example, look at the entertainment industry. One of the entertainment industry, I was in that space, and how the leadership has actually implemented automation throughout the whole entertainment space. It is a space that they use virtual reality for people like us to go into an area to have fun. And they even have they call it like a fun hotel. Okay. Initially I thought, oh my gosh, what's a hotel? And it just basically by tapping your card, you can turn on the room games that you want to play in a very immersive experience. These are all automated. So if the leadership have put in thoughts throughout the whole entertainment area, why has not been put into the workplace in bigger spaces?
Do you want to chime in, John?
Yeah, I think just have the lens that this is an opportunity, not a threat. Like I've mentioned a few times, the extra budgets that come in, it might be different to the way you do business, but there's a lot more money to be made. You say it's more valuable service when you tie in more experiences. One of our projects with a university in Canada, we focused on audio visual for the lecture theatre, but then we were also just turning off the HVAC when no one was in the space. Really simple automation, right? But that ended up saving about $1 million for the client because they did this at every lecture theatre, which they reinvest back into technology. So I just think, look at this as the opportunity and how can you play a part? Well, leverage standard technology that you can hire people from anywhere in the world. You can have your workforce is easy to find people straight out of uni. All these companies are moving away from these very specific technical frameworks that are hard-coded into boxes and apps.
Awesome. How? Take us into the future. What does it look like? Where are we going with all this automation? What's your research sort of telling you?
That's a huge one, I would say. I think AI on the automation technique can help us do better integration of different urban systems. For example, energy, transportation, supply chain, public safety, etc. So in our group, we do something like initial study, like, how can we use the same model or same architecture to model the energy, climate change, the weather, and then also the mobility together. So we know the three components have their connections. For example, if there's some extreme weathers, it will affect on the transportation. People maybe say working from home itself, go to campus, and then this will also lead to the change of energy usage pattern, and also the climate change will also affect the energy generation, solar farms, wind farms. So we think all these three things are actually connected somehow, but we don't have a model out there to look at the weather and then do prediction on the mobility or the energy patterns. So that's what we are trying to do. And then another aspect I would say is something like coexisting of automated AI agents and the actual human being. One obvious example will be the driverless vehicle. We know, I think there will be a period of time, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, that there will be some driverless vehicle and then human drivers share the road networks. So from the city perspective, I think as a smarter city, we need to make sure all our networks, all our hardwares actually support this kind of coexisting system. And then maybe after 10 years in this conference, there will be some AI agents as audience. So we need to think about how can we coexist with these AI agents, make this, all the resources fair to human, or, give some priority on some tasks. I think that's something we can look for in the long future. Yeah.
Can I jump in there as well? If anyone's heading to San Francisco, Waymo, has anyone heard of Waymo? Can I get a show of hands? Cool. It's now generally available, driverless car, and it's you can book it on an app. It comes to pick you up, and is now generally available. So it was in a private testing program, and now it's out there. So it's happening very, very, very quickly.
Awesome. There are two words. There is and there is or. And if you look through the lens of or, you can say that it divides the two pieces on either side. And if you look through the word and, it connects the two pieces on either side. We tend to get involved in black and white conversations in 2024 and beyond. And when we look at technology and people, we usually look through an or lens. But the reality is that our strength of leadership, strength of character, the way that you all engage with your AV businesses and your organizations that you work in is about how do we do this automation really great, and how do we create deeper human connections? And I think that that's probably how I want to wrap this panel up before we move to questions. Lawrence's point before about going and visiting the stand, I strongly recommend that. Whether you're doing it through Crestron, AMX, Extron, QSys, all the integration brands, whether you're working with Televic, whether you're working with Place, whether you're doing high-tech stuff, you just have to ask the right questions to the right people. The people on this panel have been awesome at answering a number of these questions. This can be a very big topic and a very broad topic. I hope everyone's taken something away. But if you do take one thing, talk to the people who are experts in these fields and ask those questions about how do I get to that stage? And then when you're out there talking with your clients, or if it's an internal client that you're dealing with, that question is great. All right, we can do that, but should we? And how does this benefit our staff? How does this benefit our customers? How does this benefit the people? Because that's what we're all here for, is about getting productivity, efficiency, effectiveness, happiness, quality of life out of people through AV. And maybe just to summarize a point that John made to me once, AV is the eyes and the ears of AI. It's the eyes and the ears of the workplace. It's how we interface with the cloud. It's how we interface with the internet. AV is here to stay. It's a very important industry for how we do these things. And for us to grow as an industry, it's about asking the right questions to the right people. So please join me in thanking our wonderful panel. And we're open for questions.
Let me just give you a mic, just for the room. Thanks, folks.
referring to the door or any system that can control brightness or aircon or whatever, do we need a big stop button, a big bypass button for when it goes wrong?
That's an awesome question. Who wants to answer that?
If that's your desired outcome, then yes, we can. I think it comes to my point of removing technology is the way to remove friction. You want to remove that door being annoying, turn off the automation and just make it a manual door. What's wrong with that? So yeah, I think that's a design question that would definitely consider. And a way to bypass everything is just saying stop. Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be a big red button that we need to be architected in, but instead have user input to be able to. So if AI is making a decision based upon some sort of automation, have the layer of context there would be an input via a human asking for something to change and then changing, but having an interface where a human can override what has been provided. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name's Eric Kaufman. I'm in the industry as well. Just Lawrence, and what you talked about and how awesome the Google engine is and the future, some of the offices that you guys are designing now for your own campuses. I had kind of a thought, and Cameron, this will resonate to you as well, taking away walls in the space and using AI down the road to where people can literally fence themselves off through AI in a specific space, utilize the technology that's in there from the standpoint of audio visual, but not have to, in a sense, have to have a room. Do you think that's something that we could probably conceptually see down the road? And it would apply to this door as well, because yesterday that screen wasn't there. So they've added it to help dampen, but we could actually in my head here, I'm just thinking big, we could actually have a virtual wall that makes that go away in a sense and still lets people come in and out without having to be distracted from it as well. So.
That's a really interesting concept. I haven't thought about that previously. I haven't heard that come up yet. Yeah. Like we're trying to. I don't know if anyone's also seen like what Google's doing in terms of trying to make it more lifelike when you're meeting with someone virtually over video conferencing. That's pretty awesome. If you want to check out YouTube. Hopefully, the units come out to Australia soon. They're just in the US at the moment. But with that being able to move walls around, why not, right? At the moment, we're starting we're trying to break down barriers of connecting virtually, then being able to get that space that you need in order to be most productive. Because at the end of the day, this all comes down to productivity. If you're moving something, you got to be adding something, and then is it a higher value task or not? Like these are really, really awesome design discussion points.
Yeah. Can I make a couple of comments on this as well? Cameron and I actually did a project 5 years ago or so with PwC, and they had one space that was like that. They called it the difference, and you could send any input to any output anywhere in this big open space, and you could come in and move things around. I think that was like $1 million space, and that was 5 years ago. I think what's happening now is everything converging onto the network means we can do this in any building, and the foundational elements of a workplace will be the network, which also gives you PoE, power over Ethernet, to power GPOs. So your desk can be anywhere as well, and then obviously the audio visual can be anywhere, leveraging network protocols.
We're done. All right. Thank you everyone for coming along. Please thank my panel again. They were fantastic.